today with the story we're going to be reading. It's a personal, reflective narrative written by Mark Twain. We are going to look at the skill of fact and opinion because within the text you will see Mark Twain use facts and opinions. You won't see quite biased as much as opinion. And when we go down and talk about skills and strategies you will learn, you'll check facts by using reliable sources. We'll go more deeply into that when we look at research and looking at online sources. Distinguishing between facts and opinion. In other words, what's the difference? By looking for clues that indicate or show opinions. And to make generalizations based on facts. And generalizations are where you can generalize and draw conclusions based on the facts that's been given. Okay? Now we have a short passage where you have both fact and opinion. So if you go down to the graphic organizer, the sentence, the Philadelphia Zoo is the oldest zoo in the United States. That's something that can be proven. So yes, it is fact. How can it be proven? Look at the explanation. This statement can be proved true by checking a reference source. Now, when we go down to the next sentence, I believe that it is also the best zoo. When you have someone's belief, when you're using superlatives like best or better, then that's a signal. So, yes, it's an opinion piece. The phrase, I believe, the judgment word best, signal this is an opinion. Academic vocabulary words for discussing facts. Of course, we have fact, which is a statement that can be proven. Opinion, a statement that expresses a person's judgment or belief. A claim, and we talk about claims quite often, is a statement as a fact. Their claim is true. And when we talk about a statement that it as a fact, distinguish, tell the difference, prove, show evidence. Okay? So some skills you'll be looking at throughout this passage are some words that have origins other than obviously one place. Prove, claim, distinguish, and fact you can see are coming from other nations. Opinion, in this case, is part of the Middle English. Okay, and that's the origin. We'll see that throughout the lesson, different words that present various European origins. Okay, we're going to skip down to reading skill. We are going to be reading the personal reflective narrative Stage Fright by Mark Twain. The reading skill. Nonfiction works often include an author's opinion as well as facts. A fact is information that can be proved. An opinion is a person's judgment or belief. To recognize clues that indicate an opinion, do this. Look for phrases that indicate or show an opinion, such as I believe or in my opinion. Look for words that indicate personal judgment, such as wonderful or terrible. We also call that slanted language. Beware of words such as always, nobody, worst, all, that might indicate a personal judgment or viewpoint. Also, throughout this text, you'll have a literary analysis. An author's perspective is the viewpoint from which he or she writes. This perspective is based on the writer's belief and background. The author's perspective reveals his or her own feelings or personal interest in a subject. As you read, look for details that reveal the author's perspective. Use a diagram like the one shown. So you have one detail here, and then you can draw the conclusion about the perspective. Since at this point we're going to just work on stage fright, let's look at the words. Sympathy. Sympathy is a noun. It's a shared feeling. And within the text on page 92, nervous himself, Barry has sympathy for anyone who fears heights. The word compulsion can also be found on page 92. Now, compulsion is a driving force. The desire to succeed was his compulsion in class. So there's an example of how compulsion could be used in the real world. Compulsion, with that ION suffix, is also a noun. Intently is an adverb, and of course we have the suffix ly. Intently is purposefully, earnestly. We find that on page 93. An example of how intently could be used in the real world. The dog stared intently at the motionless ball. Awed is an adjective, filled with feelings of fear and wonder, and you'll find that on page 93. In the real world, you could see the word awed used in this next manner. Awed, the tourist stared at the canyon. Build understanding. Stage fright. Background. Stage fright. Many people experience a physical reaction to the stress of performing in public. Under stress, the heart beats faster, blood pressure rises, blood rushes to the muscles and brain, blood sugar increases for extra energy, sweat glands become active, and the mouth gets dry. Connecting to the literature, reading, writing connection. In Stage Fright, author Mark Twain writes about the first time he made a speech in public. Make a list of some experiences that might cause stage fright in a person your age. Use at least 3 of the following words: ignore, respond, complicate, and react. So using those words, talk about what might cause an individual to have stage fright. Meet the author, Mark Twain. Mark Twain was born with a much longer name, Samuel Longhorn Clemens. Growing up along the Mississippi River in Hannibal, Missouri, Twain became a riverboat pilot at the age of 23. Later, when he became an author, he adopted the pen name Mark Twain. This name comes from slang used by riverboat pilots and means 2 fathoms, that's 6 feet deep. A legendary writer. Mark Twain is considered one of the best American writers of the 19th century. In addition to writing books, Twain gave humorous lectures around the world. Stage fright is the record of a speech he gave after his daughter's first public singing recital. And here's some fast facts. Twain's boyhood home in Missouri gave him the idea for his best books. His novel, Tom Sawyer, 1876, is his most popular work. Its sequel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, 1884, is considered by many people to be America's greatest novel. Stage fright, Mark Twain. Look at the margin questions and margin notes, critical viewing. Why might someone feel stage fright in front of an audience like this? And of course you can look at the picture and you can see multiple levels of people, so it's a large building. How do you think someone like Mark Twain was able to handle stage fright in his first speech? Vocabulary builder. You have sympathy, which is a noun, which is a shared feeling. Someone can relate to you. Compulsion is another noun, which is a driving force. Stage fright, Mark Twain. My heart goes out in sympathy to anyone who is making his first appearance before an audience of human beings. By a direct process of memory, I go back 40 years, less 1 month, for I'm older than I look. I recall the occasion of my first appearance. San Francisco knew me then as only a reporter, and I was to make my bow to San Francisco as a lecturer. I knew that nothing short of compulsion would get me to the theater. So I bound myself by a hard and fast contract so that I could not escape. I got to the theater 45 minutes before the hour set for the lecture. My knees were shaking so that I didn't know whether I could stand. If there is an awful, horrible malady, and malady is illness, by the way, you can see it at the footnote, in the world, it is stage fright and seasickness. They are a pair. I had stage fright then for the first and last time. I was only seasick once too. It was on a little ship on which there were 200 other passengers. I was sick. I was so sick that there wasn't any left for those other 200 passengers. So in other words, he took all the seasickness for him. When we go down the margin, we have reading skill, fact, and opinion. Name one fact and one opinion in this paragraph. So let's start with that. First paragraph, and then go to the second paragraph and look for fact and opinion. They are a pair. I had stage fright then for the first and last time. I was only seasick once too. It was on a little ship on which there were 200 other passengers. I was sick. I was so sick that there wasn't any left for those other 200 passengers. Now looking at the next chunk of text, we're looking for a fact and an opinion. It was dark and lonely behind the scenes in that theater, and I peeked through the little peek holes they have in the theater curtains and looked into the big auditorium that was dark and empty too. By and by it lighted up, and the audience began to arrive. I would say in this chunk there's quite a few opinions because he's talking about how dark and lonely, definitely the dark and lonely stands out as an opinion. Now, where you say I peeked through the little peek holes, that's something that can be proven. The audience began to arrive. That can be proven. It was empty and dark too, but when you say that dark and lonely, that's how he's feeling. That's his belief. So that's definitely an opinion. Now, let's go to the margin question with vocabulary builder. We have the word intently, which is an adverb, which purposefully or earnestly. Vocabulary builder with awed that would be an adjective, filled with feeling of fear and wonder. Literary analysis from an author's perspective. How would the story of Twain's first appearance be different if it were written by the governor's wife? So from a different perspective, from someone that's in the audience. So now we're starting here with the third paragraph. I had got a number of friends of mine, stalwart, which is a strong and sturdy man. Okay, stalwart means strong and sturdy. I'll start again with that paragraph. I had got a number of friends of mine, stalwart men, to sprinkle themselves through the audience armed with big clubs. Every time I said anything they could possibly guess I intended to be funny, they were to pound those clubs on the floor. Then there was a kind lady in a box up there, also a good friend of mine, the wife of the governor. She was to watch me intently, and whenever I glanced toward her, she was going to deliver a gubernatorial laugh that would lead the whole audience into applause. Now, when I read that paragraph, I think of the word satirical. I think he's kind of exaggerating himself there, being a bit sarcastic. And that's when we talk about satire. He really didn't line up all his big and strong buddies. May have planted a few people in the audience. Probably not. Like how he said, he got the governor's wife to lead the gubernatorial laugh, to lead the audience. If she laughed, everybody would follow, meaning that that just because she laughed, everybody else would because of the power that she held, and that again is satirical. Okay, going to the next paragraph. At last, I began. I had the manuscript tucked under a United States flag in front of me, where I could get at it in case of need. But I managed to get started without it. I walked up and down. I was young in those days and needed the exercise, and talked and talked. Right in the middle of the speech, I had placed a gem. So in other words, his magical line. I had put in a moving, pathetic part, which was to get at the hearts and souls of my hearers. When I delivered it, they did just what I hoped and expected. They sat silent and awed. I had touched them. Then I happened to glance up at the box where the governor's wife was, and you know what happened. Well, after the first agonizing 5 minutes, my stage fright left me, never to return. I know if I was going to be hanged, I could get up and make a good showing, and I intend to. But I shall never forget my feelings before the agony left me. And I got up here to thank you for helping my daughter by your kindness to live through her first appearance. And I want to thank you for your appreciation of her singing, which is, by the way, hereditary, which in other words, he's making another joke as if she has this great gift because of him. So he's given this speech about stage fright, not only to the audience to warm them up for his daughter who is coming next to sing a song, but he's also trying to set the tone for his daughter so that she's also hearing this and knowing that, hey, my father, the greatest humorist of his time, and maybe possibly the greatest humorist in American history, he had stage fright too. So again, it gives that sympathy, it gives that relatability that goes so well with someone like Mark Twain that's able to reach so many readers. Just some things to think about before you answer your question online. Here are some questions. How well do you think Mark Twain handles his own stage fright? And give some example or explain, tell why. Just some basic recall. What does Twain do to ensure that he will get a laugh during his first speech? Do you think this was a good plan? Why or why not? Do you believe the plan? Do you think he really had his sturdy, strong, armed men ready to pounce on someone if they didn't laugh at him? Another recall, what physical reactions does Mark Twain experience before giving his first speech? Draw conclusions. How might a little bit of stage fright help? So how can a little bit of stress help you be able to perform really well? Another bit to recall, what was the prearranged signal between Twain and the governor's wife? And then speculate. So in other words, question or draw a conclusion. What probably happened when Twain delivered the gem in his speech? Now making a judgment, And that's you forming an opinion. Do you think Twain helped his daughter in her first public appearance? Why or why not? When you go down to number 6, just gives you some ways to record the opinions and what were some clue words in the passage, and we can look at that as well. What facts does Twain give about the theater where he makes his first his first appearance? And 8 and 9 are literary analysis, so you have to go a little deeper. On number 8, identify 2 feelings or emotions that Twain has about his first public speaking engagement. How does each detail convey his personal interest in his subject? And number 9, how might the author's perspective be different if Mark Twain's daughter had written stage